Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Divine Keeper podcast. If you're new, I'm your host, India Watson, and if you're not new, welcome back. Hi guys, happy Monday. Welcome back to another podcast episode. This podcast episode is going to be a little different. Today's episode is going to be a life update podcast episode. I usually try to stray away from life update episodes because I feel like they're boring. I feel like there's nothing to really talk about when it comes to like a life update for me because I'm not a famous celebrity. Like I don't have 100,000 subscribers and followers and all of these things. Like, I'm just a regular person, regular suburban girl, and I feel like there's really nothing important to discuss. However, I actually think this podcast episode is going to be completely different because I have been going through a lot of things emotionally, mentally, and internally that I feel like is just so important and vital to what I talk about on my podcast. Recently, I've been going to the gym again. And by recently, I mean today I went to the gym for the first time in a while. And I was on the treadmill and I was listening to a podcast about healing your anxious attachment style. While I'm listening to this podcast, I'm thinking about my podcast in like retrospect, and I'm like, she said something really, I think, keen to me was a lot of people talk about anxious attachment styles, and if like we don't know, I've already done a podcast episode on this, and I really wanted to be vague because I didn't want to like tell too much of myself. I didn't want to be too vulnerable. I didn't want to be too open. I feel like that's something I've always said, like, oh, I want to do it. I want to do it on my podcast. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be raw. I'm really portraying like a fake version of myself because of how my fear of perception sometimes creeps in on me, and being too vulnerable on my podcast means like too many people have the opportunity to judge me and they don't fully know me. And I think like with having a podcast, the whole point is relatability. The whole point is, going through things that you feel like, one, like, damn, am I the only person that's gone through this? And the person on the listening and receiving end thinking like, damn, like, I'm so happy I'm not the only one that's ever gone through this. Like, that's how I felt listening to her podcast episode. And what she was saying was that a lot of people have talked about anxious attachment styles and what it is to have this anxiety that kind of rules over you and what it's like to be an anxious person. And they're drawing strings at it. They're kind of pulling together or piecing together things that they know about it, observations. Like there's an awareness of it. There's an awareness of the struggle. There's an awareness of the issue that is underlying in their lives, but there is no real attempt to actually figure out a solution or, anything practical or tangible that actually makes you feel like, damn, like this podcast episode was genuinely beneficial because not only do I have someone that relates and understands me, but I have someone who's actually taking the steps and going through the motions of actually working through a problem and being genuine and honest and like themselves about it. So my new rule that I've decided while I was on the treadmill today is I'm no longer making podcast episodes about things that I have not tried to work through myself and that I have not worked through. And I'm not making podcast episodes about things that I've gone through and not being completely honest about the steps and the things that I've took to get there and to get through it. I feel like I need to be more genuine. I need to put myself out there a little bit more. I've been really struggling because my mom was telling me how I am an open book, and it's not so much about being an open book. Everything I put on the internet is what I want you to see, and it's like very like I want to display this version of me, but I feel like I'm obviously being selective, but I do want to be more genuine with what it is that I'm putting out there. My life update for me recently, I feel like I've gone through so many ups and downs in these past couple of weeks. Today was supposed to be my last day at work, and I did not go. I could not go. And I'm not gonna lie, that made me feel some type of way because I feel like I've been having a hard week. And I think one thing that I've noticed within myself a lot is I don't really cherish things until I no longer have them and I no longer have access to them. I think that's really weird because, I always talk about how things are privileges in your life, how people are lucky to have you and how people are lucky to experience you, but we never really talk about how lucky we are to experience things from other people. Not being able to, I work with kids, so not being able to say goodbye to the kids that I've spent the past couple of months with, like I want to say the past like 6-7 months with, was kind of hard because I really needed like the laughter and the jokes and the joy that they bring me. And I feel like I did kind of take that for granted because I was just so like exhausted and tired from like going from job to job to job to job that I didn't really sit and bask in the gratitude that I had with, building these connections and these relationships with young people. And not that I'm that much older than them, but building these relationships with young people and just building these relationships with the people around me in general that I have genuinely cherished and genuinely valued. I feel like one thing that I've learned having an anxious attachment and being in relationships is I've always tried to predict when the relationship was going to end, when they were going to fall out of love with me, if they were going to leave me, when things were just going to come crashing down. And I would always try to like look for these things. Sorry. I'd always try to look for these things in my relationships and or my friendships to kind of see where the signs may be, to see if I can make or take some preventative action against it. I always say my favorite SZA lyric is when she says, I'm always anticipating the worst and I'm tired of anticipating the worst. I don't know if she said that, guys, or if I'm making that shit up, but I'm pretty sure, 99% sure she said that, because I always sing that part. But I've always related to that. I've always like sat back and been like, damn, like that's so me. Like I'm always anticipating the worst and I'm tired of it. And I don't really enjoy the things that are currently in my life. And I feel like I'm always praying to God, like, God, give me a second chance at this. Give me another time to do this. Give me something else that's similar to this so I can experience it and cherish it the right way. And I make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again because I'm not really taking any time to sit with myself, to sit with my thoughts, to sit with the experiences of things, to actually understand, like, why am I the way that I am in some things that I'm doing. I didn't really cherish the bonds and relationships. Like, yes, I loved them. Yes, I treated them good. Yes, I cared so much. I care so deeply. I love those kids. They're like literally awesome, amazing. And I had like such an amazing time at the job that I was at. But since I had such a hard week and I knew like they permit like a level of laughter and comfort in the spaces that I work, I'm sad that I took that for granted. I'm sad that I took that experience at the job for granted. And it's not like anything bad happened. There's no bad blood. Like, I just needed a break from working multiple jobs. But it's just a prime example to me in my life of not fully enjoying something I have until I don't have it anymore. I had noticed this really a lot in my relationships. And as a person who has a very anxious attachment, I've always dated and dealt with avoidant people. I've always been with avoiding people. I've always been with people who cannot confront a situation. I've always been with people who are very scared of confrontation. I'm a confrontational person. Yes, I have anxiety, and I feel like being a confrontational person has allowed me to confront things that aren't that important. Like, they're not necessarily issues. They're just things that are on my mind that I'm like, okay, well, I feel like it's an issue, so let me talk about it. In my childish ways and in my childish ways of thinking, I've just always been with people who I knew looked good but didn't really like treat me too good. My silliest and stupidest most mistake that it will always point fingers and laugh back at me at the end of the day. And I've always just been with avoidant people, okay? And I feel like, you being with an avoidant person makes the relationship a lot more you wanting them than they'll ever want you. I feel like that is such a prevalent and awful and horrible thing that not that I'm still with avoiding people. I actually avoid avoiding people. I think my last relationship was with a very secure individual and a very secure person that it really made me want to be in that same sense and same level of security, because how cool is it to not feel so triggered by little things? I just feel like I thought my anxious attachment was fine, and I thought I was getting through it because I was just been single for so long and there was nobody to really trigger it. I really was believing that in order to heal an anxious attachment, you have to be in a relationship for that, when honestly you just need to understand that you have an anxious attachment and you need to understand how to self-regulate that anxiety. I have anxiety not just in relationships but in friendships, in my life, and in things, and I'm not trying to speak anxiety over my life, and I don't want that to be something that's like a bag held over my head, but it is something that I've dealt with. And I feel like that kind of stems down to recognizing, regulating, understanding and realizing that there is a bit of a problem. I feel like recognizing is seeing where your thoughts are kind of like leading. For me, I feel like the best way to break this down is when I do have anxiety, I know my anxiety kind of stems from thoughts. So when I started thinking things, I feel like I can start regulating my thoughts. Like, okay, like you're thinking this and you're thinking too deeply about it. Like nobody said that. Nobody said you're weird. Nobody said you're ugly. Nobody said you walk like a bird. And like nobody said any of those things about you. I don't know why you're, overthinking a situation that genuinely was just like a one and done, and it's fine and it's calming. I think like taking deep breaths. Obviously, this is something that I'm trying to work through in my life and not something that I have mastered. So it's going to take a lot of time because for me, I've dealt with anxiety for a really long time, and I just felt like it was something that was just supposed to be. Sorry, I have something weird in my mouth. But I thought it was something that was supposed to be, and then it was just going to go away on its own. I didn't really think that the anxiety that I felt kind of followed through with action on how to take over it. I'm reading a book, or I'm starting a book. I've actually started this book before, but I never got through it. I've never finished it. But it's called, I don't know what it's called, and I'm kind of like scared. I'm gonna just reach over and grab it. It's called Get Out of Your Head, and it's by Alan. Sorry, it's by. Hello, it's never taken me so long to get to like a page. Why? I've never seen a book that didn't have the author on it. Like, are we serious? Okay, it's by Alan. I'm sorry, I know that's absolutely no help at all whatsoever. Like, thanks, India, for like the barest minimum of detail. But it's a book on how to regulate your thoughts. I started this book. I got this book sophomore year of high school. I knew I needed it. I know I've always just struggled with negative thinking and negative thoughts. But I'm actually going to read it. And my next podcast episode, hopefully next Monday, I will try to finish the book in a week, would be about this book and what I've learned and gained from it. That's also a sense of holding myself accountable for next week's episode and staying true to my goal of reading this book. I feel like one thing that I've learned with just the experiences that I've gone through is the emphasis on dumping. I'm someone who loves to talk to my friends. I don't have many of them. So the friends that I do have, I cherish very deeply, and I like to tell them bits and pieces about my life. And I've realized that, one, nobody really likes the friend that only goes to them when they have problems and issues. If you are one of those people, I don't blame you for wanting and needing someone to talk to. I think that's very important as human beings and as relational beings. We're always going to crave someone to talk to. But I think there is a sense of when we start oversharing and like dumping onto the people that we care about to where our, conversation, I don't want to say feels like a burden, because in no way, shape, or form or aspect do I feel like a burden to anybody in my life. I don't feel like a burden to any of my friends, and I don't feel like a burden to any of my family members. I just feel like, they deserve a level of peace and kind of regulating their own emotions. And as much as I love telling them about the things that I feel like I'm going through and that I want to work through, I don't want them to feel like it's been dumped and poured out all over them, and like that's their problem that they need to fix or, try to help me get through. Trauma dumping, I think, is a big thing that we all do. Trauma dumping, I think, is a big thing that we have a lot of people do to us. And I think you need to kind of step back and step outside of that dumping and trauma dumping aspect of your life and think like, okay, how can I not dump? And how can I not make my issues someone else's problem? And I will quote problem, because the things that you're going through and the things that you're feeling are not problems. I think that's something that I really need to tell myself. Like, I'm not a problem. I don't have problems. Well, I do have problems, okay? I feel like that's like manipulative thinking right there. But it's not a problem, and I'm not a problem for having issues. But I need to learn how to work through things without making it somebody else's problem and forming this codependent bond on them to help me get through bad things and help me get through tough times in my life. How can I get through these tough times on my own? I think, I've learned in my life, and I'm trying to teach myself how privacy is power, and how telling people certain and specific things about my life kind of takes away from the private aspect of who I am and what I want to walk in and become. Telling too much of yourself, I feel like I kind of personally feel a level of exposure. I'm like, oh shit, I'm no longer mysterious. Like, damn it, they know too much. And yes, I feel like it's just amazing to have people in your life who you can share bits and pieces of yourself with, and you can let your guard down to, and you can let your walls down with. But I also feel like that comes at a cost. For me, I think, and I'm gonna give you both like sides of the script. For me, in my dating life, I used to go to my friends a lot and dump to them a lot about the men I was dealing with that were treating me so bad. And I'm not even gonna sit here and be like, yep, I was with awful men and they treated me terribly, because hello, who set those systems up? Like, you are still in those relationships because you choose to be in them and you choose to not walk out of them. And I would tell them all about the relationships. I would trauma dump about the relationships. I would tell them everything, all the tea. Oops, I spilled my water. I would tell them all the tea. And I would tell them all the things that I know I need to do. I'd be like, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do that. I know I need to walk out of this. I know how to get out of this. And a couple weeks later, they'd ask me like, oh, like, hey, India, are you still with so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, bro, like, let me tell you what they did. And you could just see like a level of, I don't want to say frustration or disappointment, but like frustration and disappointment in someone when you know how to take the steps to help yourself and you're not helping yourself. You know how to take the steps to move out of bad situations in your life and you're not doing it. It shows a lack of accountability in your own life. And I have a lack of accountability in my own life, because not that I'm still in those positions. I've definitely learned my worth and learned how to walk away from people sooner than later. But I've learned more about holding myself accountable in a sense of, I know I need to do this. I'm not taking the action to doing it. And I feel like there is sorry, that was my generator for like the air. But I know there is a stopping of the progress that could be produced, because I'm not really moving any mountains in my own life to actually like do something about the things that like I'm going through. And I feel like I was just talking about this with my friend today. Like, he was like, India, like, you need to hold yourself accountable, because like, you know what you need to do and you know the steps to take it and you know how to get there. And I love listening to you tell me the things and talk about these things, and we're having these conversations, but now it just kind of comes down to action. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I think another big thing that I've kind of realized in my life, which is gonna feel sad. Hold on, I want to fix like my TV. It's bothering me. But another thing that I've realized in my life that I think kind of makes me sad. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Hello. Oh, it fell out the hole, guys. Oops, that's kind of kinky. Sorry, should I just hold it? Oops, I should just hold it, huh? Well, like, obviously not the big bar, but I should just hold like the mic. Okay, hold on, let me fix this. And then I'll come back, okay? Okay, take that as like my metaphoric mic drop. Well, not even metaphoric, because it just actually happened, and I feel like I should feel embarrassed, but I'm not, and I'm not gonna feel embarrassed. Thank you. Life happens, things happen. But what I was saying is, one of the things that I feel like I'm very sad about, because I hate to say that they were right, but you cannot romanticize everything. You cannot. I feel like I try to live my life in this blissful unawareness that I try to make negative things positive, and I feel like sometimes, I'm forcing a sense of positivity among things that actually feel and fucking suck. They suck so bad. They're horrible emotions to kind of feel sometimes, and I try to romanticize things in my life. That's just, you don't need to romanticize everything. Stop trying to romanticize everything. Let the bad be bad, because the bad is normal and the bad is necessary, okay? We need bad things to happen sometimes to really shape our character. We need hardship in our lives to produce growth, and we need to be stuck in the turmoil so we know how to enjoy being above the soil and actually smelling the flowers and, basking in something good. I love to romanticize everything, and I like to make everything cute and dreamy. And like, I remember I was asked, how do you romanticize a breakup? And I was like, okay, well, I like to think about it as like, okay, like a killer glow up is coming my way. Like, excuse me, oh my gosh, burping belly. But a glow up is coming my way, and I'm going to get a fatter ass because I'm going to be in the gym, and I'm going to be consistent, and I'm going to produce art, and my podcasts are going to be in a sense of emotion, and it's going to be great. Moment of silence for that stupidity, because going through heartbreaks and being in like sad stages, I feel like it's so hard to like produce any of the things that I genuinely said like would come from the breakup or come from a breakup. It's hard to really do anything when you feel like your heart's It's hurting. It sucks and it's hard. And I really try to like tell someone like this is the romantic version of being in a breakup and like what breakups look like. Like, yes, there's so much beauty to it. There's so much beauty in like, you know, feeling emotions and being able to mourn the living and being able to honor what was there and, you know, get past what is no longer. But it's hard to do so, and you cannot romanticize that because romanticizing pain and kind of the things that I said stem from this is what the relationship brings. Like, this is what the aftermath of the relationship brings. And that's no guarantee in the ending of a relationship, okay? There's no guarantee you're going to have a glow up. There's no guarantee that you're going to have a fatter ass by the end of it. There's no guarantee you're going to have a killer morning routine and you're going to be the best version of yourself and the baddest bitch to walk the earth. And that person's going to come back missing you. You could sit on your ass that entire time during that heartbreak, not move a muscle, fall into a deep depression, get really, really sad, and take no change in your life. You don't reflect on the relationship. You don't learn from it. Or you do all of those things hoping for the person to come back into your life, and they come back, they leave, and you're back on the same spiral that you once were because nothing you did was authentic to the healing of you. You did it for the sake of someone else. You did it for the idea of spite and jealousy and making someone feel regretful and remorseful for breaking up with you or leaving you or however the situation ended. You did it for disingenuous reasons. To romanticize a breakup, I feel like for me now has looked more like accepting and honoring the fact that a situation has happened and how to grow forward and go forward, and that without holding any hate in my heart towards another person, hate in my heart towards the situation, and learning how to honor the mistakes that I made, even myself, in the relationship, and how not to make them again in future relationships. That I think is really big because I never ever in a million years would ever say those words, ever. I promise you I would never say those things. I would tell you I'm a saint in the relationship and I'm perfect and I'm the victim, genuinely. But literally no, there's always something to learn, grow, and gain from every experience you've ever been in. Friendships, I think especially, I've been through so many friendship breakups. I want to make a podcast episode about friendship breakups. Friendship breakups are hard. I've always have minimized friendship breakups. Why? Because I've always felt like they weren't important enough to talk about, and I've always felt like, okay, like you'll bounce back, like you'll have more friends. So true. People come and go. People are meant to be lessons in your life. They're meant to teach you things. They're meant to be experiences. They're meant to be beautiful, and it's meant to be great, and it's meant to learn from. A lot of my friendships at the time, I was not learning from things. I was like, okay, this person brought out something in me that like now I have to like work through not carrying into like my next friendship, or like now I have friendship trauma that I'm still like very wary of making new friends and like precautious of new people. I feel like friendship breakups really produce so much in you because the longer the friendship, I feel like the more reflective you can be on it and understand like how a person played its course in your life, how you played your course in their life, what you learned out of that friendship, what you could have done better in that friendship. And I feel like in a situation where you don't learn, in my life, God has always put me in a position to where now I can learn. Okay. So this is my example. I was friends with these girls a really long time, loved them, awesome, amazing, wonderful friendship. Now, it was really hard for me to get over this friendship like ending, and I carried a lot of resentment for these people. I was like, fuck them, I'm done, like whatever, like it's over. Like not even like in a like not even like a an obsessive crazed way, but I was just like, no, like these are ops now. Like I don't fuck with none of them. Like that's dead, that's done. And then I became friends with these other group of people, right? I'm in this other friendship and I'm now on the receiving end. So it's like I'm friends with someone who was just like me, and I'm playing the role of the people that I was friends with. And now I have the understanding of seeing like, oh, like this is what it was like being friends with me during this time period. This is what they were probably feeling. And I know there were probably moments in their life when they're like sitting there and they're like, oh, like this is what it was like being friends with me, and this is what she was feeling like, you know. I'm always put in a situation to learn, to understand, to analyze different aspects of the friendship and the relationship that I may be confused on, any clarity on. I've always been provided that, God willingly, to understand certain things and why certain things played out in my life. So I feel very grateful for that. That's something that I think I really have acknowledged and seen in my life, that I have the constant ability to learn from my experiences. And even if nobody really sees like growth and change in me as a person, I know I can see that in me, and God sees that in me every day, because I'm constantly being faced with an opportunity to grow and learn from something that either happened past or present, or that may even happen in my future. Ooh. Emotionally, I feel like I'm gaining a sense of peace. And I'm gaining a sense of stability in my feelings and my emotions. That these are things that I feel like I'm constantly trying to regulate. I said this earlier when I had recorded the podcast episode, but I am walking and going into therapy, or I'm trying to get into therapy. I feel like therapy is important. I've always been so pro therapy. I really am so pro therapy. I feel like everybody should go, because there's just so many things that we can relearn and rewire about ourselves, and actually like walk into a better pathway into our adulthood life. I feel like early adulthood stages, therapy is definitely necessary to shape you into not really shape you, but help you see the equation for the change that you need to walk in, so you can make the decisions to actually step foot in that change. So I'm trying to go to therapy, and I'm really trying to unlearn a lot of my patterns in life. And by no means is this like performative acting for therapy that I'm trying to support. Like, no. I genuinely feel like I've said, I've had really bad anxiety, and I don't want that. I don't want that ruling over my life. I don't want that ruling over my adulthood. I don't want that ruling over my 20s. I don't want fear to just be constantly lingering over me. And I don't want negative things to just be held over my head like a bag and like suffocate me. I don't want that. And so I'm trying to work through that. I'm trying to get through that. And I feel like I'm taking it day by day. I honestly really did just want to sit down and have like a podcast episode about where it is that I am at emotionally and mentally, and what it is that I am thinking and kind of feeling. I am more so open to listening to more podcasts. I feel like podcasts are like a maturity thing. Like, the older you get, the more you're like, damn, like I really want to listen to something that is kind of like stimulating for me. And for me, podcasts have really like been doing that. And the morning, during like little tasks, I can't really listen to music right now, and I feel like right now I need to just feel a sense of grounding. And I've been trying to ground myself in myself. That's very hard to do. I've kind of wanted to devote myself to this season of change and growth. I always say like September, October, November, December for me are such like healing months, because the fall, I believe, like fall theory, something I'm making up, but I feel like that's when we all kind of like lock in. But genuinely, like, I will never forget my sophomore, no, it was it was my junior year. My junior year, I got my heart broken again. I feel like it's so funny to say like a lot of my like self-improvement errors kind of stem from heartbreak. It's so funny to kind of reflect on, because I genuinely would get hurt to a point where I was like, I don't like this version of myself, and I want to be a new, different version of myself. I feel like, from such a young age, I would say like 14, 15, 16, those are young ages. Being in those young age aspects, and like, feeling like in some way and shape and form like my love was not good enough with the people that I was with, knowing that it was just me choosing the wrong people to share and experience my love with. But having those people make me feel like I needed to change things about myself. I feel like I would never not do those things again. I feel like I'm grateful for the experiences that have shaped me to where I am and where I need to be today, because it's allowed me to be very reflective in a lot of my relationships. I will not say it in a sense of like, oh, I was so insecure that I needed to be like so much better than what I am and what I was, but I'm learning and teaching myself that even through failed friendships, failed relationships, failed like experiences and expectations that I've had with myself, that there is constantly a state of reflection and growth that you can be in, and like truly like learn from all aspects of your relationship. And that's what people are meant to do in your life. And I feel like those situations have allowed me to change my character and my approach in things, and that's something that I'm just continuously doing. During those fall moments, I was like really like locked in on myself, and I was really like healing out of spite. I feel like a lot of things that we do sometimes are out of spite. It's like, okay, like I'm gonna be a better person. Like I previously said, I'm gonna be a better person for this person so they can regret missing out on me. And now it's like, okay, like I'm gonna be a better person because I want to be a better person. And this decision has nothing to do with other people. This decision just has to do with the fact that I feel like I acted in an ugly way and I didn't really perform and act in a way that I should have, and like honor any like morals and like good characteristics that I possibly have in this friendship or relationship. And I want to grow from it, and I want to learn from it, and I want to like not make the mistake in my like life later on. And I think these things are really hard to act upon. So I did that during the fall of my sophomore year and or junior year, and I've you know tried to make the steps. I was literally just saying to myself that you can want to make a change and you can do it for other people. You can want to make a change and you can do it for your relationship. You can want to make a change and you can do it because you think that it's going to make people gravitate towards you. And when that doesn't work out, you're going to crumble. Because when you don't do things for yourself in a sense of self-sufficiency to make yourself feel better, look better, go through things better. And when I say look better, I don't mean look better physically. I mean look better internally. Like your character looks better, your heart looks better, your morals look better, like looks better in that aspect. You have something that's substantial and that's going to last because it was done in a sense of self and not done in a sense of spite or done for other people or done for the world or done for like, I don't know, like validation and approval. When you're not looking for those things and when you're not seeking those things from other people, like you will find the most self-fulfillment. I think that's really where self-improvement and the gratification of growing for oneself really comes in. Yeah, I feel like I don't really know what else to talk about. This has been a very chaotic episode. My mic fell off, like my like setup thing just like dismantled. The train is going by. I'm kind of in the mood to read now. And I really am going to finish this book, and I'm going to talk about it next week's episode. Podcast episodes every Monday. That's what I think I'm really, really, really like tuning into right now. And I'm really feeling that vibe. Like a podcast episode on a Monday. Like, hold on. More intentionality on this podcast for sure, and more vulnerability for sure. And not just in a superficial way. I feel like, you know, I try to really open up with the things that I'm thinking about in my life and the things that I'm like realizing in my life. And also it's really big to just like speak your thoughts into existence, which I always say, like just speak power over what it is that you're thinking, and like really shine light to your positive thoughts and like your thoughts that actually stem from productivity and that can generate change. So yeah, that was this podcast episode. That was today's episode. I love you guys so much. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please follow my podcast. If you're on Apple Music or Spotify, please follow the podcast, leave a review. If you know somebody that could really benefit from this podcast episode, share it with them. If you're listening, you guys can always leave a review, leave a comment, ask some questions. Like I always respond. If you're on YouTube, be sure you subscribe to me, like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you guys next Monday. If you're looking for more content, you can always follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at The Divine Cupid. I love you guys so much. I will see you next Monday. Goodbye.